Everybody, hello, welcome back. It's so nice to see you. I'm just going to adjust my chair like that. All right, here we are. Here we are, and oh my goodness, I have really, really cool stuff to talk to you about today. Um, I had a I had a couple of conversations that were illuminating, and I want to share them with you. But first, I want to show you one of the things that I have, one of the cool goodies that I have ordered that are going to be in my booth at FanaticCon on August 13th here in Ottawa at the conference center. So this looks like a lunchbox. Granted, it looks like a lunchbox, not a lunchbox. And what's on the cover, I'm gonna try and bring it closer. What's on the cover is, here we go. There we go. What's on the cover is that fabulous composite picture. All the different photos were taken by John Major last year at FanaticCon. So this is the souvenir. This is FanaticCon 3, Fame, 15 Minutes of Fame with me. And I am going to be making these available. What are they? They're not boxes. Well, there is the box, and the box is awesome. But what is in the box is a puzzle. That image is a puzzle. Isn't that awesome? And it's really good quality too. It's really good quality. So here it is. Now, how big is it? It's not teeny weeny. It's not the size of the box that it's coming. So this is a tray that I use when I don't feel like sitting at the table to eat. And this tray turns out to be 18 inches by 14 inches from wood thing to wood thing. So the puzzle is 20 inches by 15 inches. So it's just a little bigger than this. Isn't that awesome? All right, I'm going to try and put this down without breaking something. Hang on a second here. Okay, there we go. It's really heavy, that tray. So this is so cool. I don't have a lot of them, but if we love them, I can do two things. One is that I can take orders. But the other is, this is what is so amazing and cool, is that John Major is coming again, and so is Gary Raish, and they're both bringing their cameras. The thing is, we're going to do it again for next year. So there's going to be souvenir pictures this year that we put together a little differently, but looks kind of like that. And so this will be available for FanaticCon 4 souvenirs for sale after the event. How awesome is that? So I'm just so excited when these things work out, because sometimes you order things and you open the box and you look at it and you think, no, and you throw it away. All right, so that's the first thing. I love it when there's going to be wonderful surprises, especially when I can tease the surprise and show you how amazing it is. So I guarantee you that the puzzle pieces are good quality. They're not, flimsy. It's not just paper, and it's going to be a decent size. So, and you know who's on it? Who's on it? Let me see who's on it. Well, some people I don't know who's on it because they're covered all over with their masks. But April is there, and Lance is there, and Liam is there, and Shelley is there, and Greg is there. At the very beginning, at the very least, I know that many. So that means there's something for us all to look forward to, right? Okay. So I'm having these amazing conversations about Pivotry. And I think what happens eventually is that once you get close, once let's say you're a Viking and you're in your boat and, you're rowing forever. And then all of a sudden you see land and great cries of yay. And are we there yet? Go up in the boat, land ahead. And everything changes. Everything changes about the anticipation, because for a long time, rowing across vast stretches of water, we kind of went on faith and hope, and maybe we went last time, so we kind of know where we're going. When you actually see your goal, when you actually see what looks like how many steps before you get there, you shift into a different gear. And you start having much more interesting and detailed conversations. And the other thing is promises that you have made, suggestions you've given, hints on how to, people are starting to apply them, and they are experiencing the result. They're not just listening and choosing to believe what I'm telling them. They're doing it and they're discovering, oh my God, that actually works. Cool. So, one of the conversations that I had with Gaetan Lacasse, who is the Canadian military veteran who sustained post traumatic stress disorder during his deployment, and now lives and thrives with a service dog, the service dog Zoe, who is trained to alert and disrupt at the very onset of an episode, so that Gaetan, with Zoe's help and other dogs prior to her, has been able to own his moments. He no longer feels like a victim. He no longer feels helpless in the throes of something that is bigger than him. He feels that this is a condition that is manageable and that he is the one managing it. And that is an enormous shift in how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your future and your present, and how you can look at the past differently. It is a huge gift. It's a huge blessing, because it puts all of the controls and the ownership and the pride and the anticipation back in your hands. And it allows us all to feel once again that we represent unlimited possibility. And that is just, well, there's not much that gets any better than that. So in the conversation that I was having with him, I said that I understood how the process works when someone with PTSD has a service dog trained to disrupt both the onset and the completion of a stress episode. How the dog interrupts the flow of that message coming from the subconscious. The subconscious mind, that part of our mind, only lives in the present tense. It doesn't comprehend past or future. It doesn't think in words, it thinks in pictures. And when there is a little default, a little zert in the trigger mechanism, trauma is what that brain is triggered by, and it sets up an immediate defense response to the thing it perceives as real. And because the subconscious is tasked with life or death, what it delivers is the flow of adrenaline so that you can fight or flee. You can freeze or hide and survive. I get that. I understand what the dog is doing. I understand what it does to that brain faulty trigger. I understand. It was explained so beautifully to me when I first met Gaetan and I met others that he works with. But I said to him, I get what the dog does. I get what the dog interrupts. I get how that changes everything. Why does it work? We're not spectators in this. Why does it work? What do we do? And I mentioned this on Tuesday this week. He said, because the dog lives in the present only, and only knows what is happening now, because the dog can't perceive future or past, the dog represents the present. When the dog touches the human partner, the actual physical touch brings the human back from the subconscious reliving of something else, brings us back to this right moment now, this moment with the dog. The dog becomes larger than that other thing. And I said, right. And he said, because the dog becomes larger than that other thing, the dog is the alpha energy. We mirror the alpha energy. That is how we learn to survive. That is how we learn to do everything that we do. Before we could speak as children, we mirrored our parents. We mirrored the alpha. We mirrored the leaders. We mirrored our siblings. We mirrored our pets. We mirrored the things around us. That's how we learn. It's how we've always learned. In a stress moment, in a trauma moment, we're not thinking here. We're thinking there. We're not assessing whether this is a good idea. It's an immediate knee-jerk reflex to mirror the dog. The dog is in the present. The dog is grounding us. The dog is the pattern interrupt. We mirror the dog. We take on the calm of the dog. We join the dog in this moment. And I said, so as a result, the trauma experience fades. And he said, yes. Yes, the dog is grounding us. The dog is the energy we mirror, not the other. It's an override. And I said, fascinating. What does the dog do? Why does the touch of the dog change everything? Because the dog, by overriding, by stepping front and center, by placing himself directly in front of us with the paw, with the gaze, with the intention, all of the other distractions disappear. They're gone. Not forever, but they're gone right now. And the adrenaline subsides. And we take a more calming breath. The dog is calm. The dog is breathing in a calm way. We are mirroring the dog. We calm down. We are here. We are grounded. We are safe. And we feel all these things without consciously being aware of them. We are in those trauma moments in a very primitive state. And that is what it takes. Mirroring, energy for energy, intention with intention, presence with presence. That's how it works. It's that simple. And I was blown away, because the only thing better than a blessing, the only thing better than an amazing outcome is that it's simple to achieve, right? It's the only thing. I'm just going to click this to make this happen. There we go. Good morning, Freddie. It's wonderful to see you. It's wonderful to see you. So now I want to talk about how we get there. And the title of today's episode, 164, is Cheese Doodles and Michelangelo. One of these things is not like the other. And yet, the outcome in my conversation, in my hook words and phrases, key words and hooks, it turns out to be the same. So there's this wonderful story that I read a long time ago. Whether it's true or not, that kind of doesn't matter. It's just such a lovely story. So the story goes like this. Once upon a time, somebody asked Michelangelo, the famous sculptor. So Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and he also famously carved statues that are iconic and stand the test of time. One of them is the very famous statue of David, of the legend of David and Goliath. And there have been all kinds of controversies over the years about the appropriateness of the statue. And, you know, my mom was an artist, and I look at art as an expression of mirroring. It's a creative expression of mirroring, using different platforms, using different media, sculpting using stone, using marble, painting using different media for painting, songs, music, dance, theater, writing. These are all the way we mirror the beauty that we see around us, the magic, the miracles that we see around us. This is our attempt to breathe life into them in a different way. So Michelangelo, world famous for his incredible gifts and his incredible work. Somebody said to him, how do you do what you do? How do you sculpt? How do you begin, and how do you get to the end product? And Michelangelo said, well, it's actually very simple. I begin with a block of marble, and I pick up my tool. And then, carefully, day by day, bit by bit, I chip away all of the marble that isn't the horse. If true, Michelangelo was also world famous for eye roll worthy statements. I chip away everything that isn't the horse. When I talk about cheese doodle moments, my feeling about cheese doodles is that yes, they're crunchy, and yes, they taste like an approximation of cheese. Cheese doodles for me are the thing you eat. That is it's food, but it's not food. It's edible. Okay, so a cheese doodle for me is the edible version of AI, right? It's artificial in terms of its intelligence. It's not food, and it's not cheese. It's filler. It's like you take a styrofoam cup, right? You break it into rough little pieces, and then you dip it in sticky yellow stuff, and then you eat it. And after you eat the first one, and you say, for no reason that makes any sense to me at all, you eat another one. So for me, cheese doodles and cheese doodle moments are empty. They're a waste of time. They're something to do. Something to do. They're not valuable. And it's not like we don't have enough to do. However, they achieve something for us that is just a thing that is part of our nature. And that is, they're a stalling tactic. I need to eat. I'm feeling hungry. Okay, but instead of going to the trouble of getting up and going to the kitchen and opening various containers and pulling out various appliances and doing all of that measuring and sorting and reading of recipes and putting stuff together in some sort of container and flinging it in something and then setting a timer and hoping that somebody comes along and rescues that glop and replaces it with something that has any value, which is the story of how I cook. Instead of doing that, we know we should eat, we know we're hungry. So what we do is we reach for something convenient that has some kind of snack appeal. To me, the cheese doodles, they're satisfyingly crunchy. I get that, but they don't have anything in them. You know, potato chips have a flavor that is reminiscent of a potato. Somewhere in there, you can sense the potato. Cheese doodles, you can't sense anything except styrofoam. The cheese isn't really cheese. It's artificial. It's an approximation of cheese. And then on top of that, so you filled yourself up with nothing useful, right? On top of that, you have all this grek all over your fingers. And if you're not careful, you have it on your clothes. Charming. And the couch. Perfect. So, and the remote. Yay, trifecta. So the cheese doodle moment is a stalling tactic. The cheese doodle moment is an incomplete task. The cheese doodle moment is something we do to fill time that gives us the excuse to put off the thing we know we need to do. So it takes away, well, it's a stretch, but it takes away our responsibility to look after ourselves, to do the thing we need to do. Now, why this matters, because I mean, everybody from time to time wants a cheese doodle. Everybody from time to time wants ice cream, wants useless food. I get it. I'm not sure why we do. I just get that we do. All right. The thing about the cheese doodle habit, the repetition of it, why it is unhelpful is this: it gets in the way. It gets in the way of the thing we want. It gets in the way of the thing we need. It gets in the way of the thing we actually do well that makes us feel good about our ability. Why would we deliberately do something that at the end of the day makes us feel like losers? That's a job for someone with a lot more specific training than someone like me. However, I will tell you my theory, and I will tell you why the work we do to resist the cheese doodle delivers immediate rewards. It's not like, if I do the exercises for 6 months and I deny myself the things that I know are bad for me for 6 months, then at the end of 6 months, I'll look better and feel better. This is not that. This is within minutes. Within minutes, the results are there. And I'll tell you about it. And I'm going to use a story that happened yesterday. Eddie shared it with me. And when he did, I said, "Oh my God." And he said, "I sense an episode." And I said, "You bet you do." You bet you do. And I said, "I'm going to talk about cheese doodles and Michelangelo and your experience." That's what I'm going to do. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all shapes and sizes, Eddie is a friend of mine on Facebook. You can look him up. You can ask him if I made this up out of whole cloth or not. And he will tell you, "Darling, every word of it is true." So here we go. So Eddie has a new job. Eddie was offered an opportunity to step up onto the next rung on the ladder, and he accepted. And as often happens, immediately after he accepted, there were all kinds of things that happened that would not have been his responsibility if he had not been asked and if he had not taken that step up in responsibility and new job functions. So these things have happened in the past. He just hasn't been in the front line. As a result, ta-da, very busy. Very busy all of a sudden. And he leaned in and he acquitted himself very nicely. So we had that conversation about the, oh my God, crisis that happened and how well he and his team handled it. And he was saying a lot of the things that I've been talking about that then he and I have been discussing because he's following up with me. He's watching these videos. He's thinking about it. He's writing notes. He's talking with his sweetie about it. They're discussing it. And then he's getting back to me and he's saying, "When you say this, am I right in assuming that you mean that?" And we've had these discussions for quite some time. So what he said to me yesterday was, after the crisis that came out of nowhere, today it was my job to perform a function that involved a lot of paperwork. So he works in a retail location, and he is now in charge of organizing all of the paperwork at the end of and at the beginning of every new cycle being a shift or a day or a week. And so he's the one who has to tally everything up. And while he has been aware of those functions and has done some of them, this is new for him that he is now in charge of. And he said, I did this thing. I got there early. I was kind of concerned because quite often when I'm presented with a lot of stuff, my brain tends to freeze. I want to do all the things all at once. He was saying, for instance, when somebody suddenly questions him, he says, I know the answer and I'm confident in the answer, but there are so many things I want to include in the answer. And I'm so impatient to include them that sometimes I find myself stuttering. And I know that that looks like I'm not in charge of this, that I'm not competent, I'm not capable. And that's frustrating, and that disturbs me more. And so the situation gets worse. And I said, this is an amazing thing to share, Eddie, because this happens to a lot of people. It happens to a lot of people when they have to take tests, when their ability is questioned, not in a confrontational way, but when we went to school, there were tests every so often to test, to check on our learning progress. There are tests that we are faced with in the work environment. There are tests in our relationships all the time. And when we get too caught up in, I need to include everything in this, we can sometimes sabotage ourselves. And the core here, how this is all connected to Michelangelo and cheese doodles and success and pivotry and mirroring 2.0, all of this is all of a piece. This is the key. We try to do too much. We don't take the time to eliminate, to prioritize, to plan what we need to do now. We don't take the time to prioritize, to identify, to plan what we need now. Why don't we do that? It's boring. It's struggling. It challenges us. It isn't a fun thing. We don't say, wee, I'm organizing papers. Yay! We don't do that. I have never met anybody who says, oh boy, today I'm going to do my taxes. I've never heard anybody say that. When it's time for me to do my taxes, I say, all right, I'm going in. Get everybody out of my way. I'm going in. And I prioritize that. And I do nothing other than that while I'm doing that. So when we procrastinate, when we put off, when we stall to give ourselves permission to delay a task we find boring, annoying, painful, less than fun, what we're actually doing is making the task itself harder, because we know it's not a knee jerk to stall. The subconscious brain doesn't say, oh, there's danger. Let's wait a minute and hope it goes away. There wouldn't be any humans if our brain had done that. We'd all be gone. Our subconscious brain says, act now. Fight, flee, freeze, hide, comply. Now, in this moment, now. There is no stalling. The stalling is done by the thinking brain that says, oh, I don't feel like doing that today. Hoarding is an outcome of stalling, of deciding that I'll put the things away later. I'll prioritize and discard later. I'll unpack the groceries later. Ends up with spoiled food. Ends up with clean the kitchen. I'll pick up that broken glass later. Ends up with a bloody foot. I'll eat cheese doodles now. and cook food later ends up with junk in our bodies that make us sick and end up with cheese all over our fingers. Michelangelo saying, I'll pick up all these chips of marble later. I can't be bothered now. Keep stepping on them. They're in the way. And by the way, when you look at the size of the marble and the ultimate size of the horse or the statue or the bird or whatever it is he chose to carve, that's a lot of chips of marble. If he didn't clear them away in the moment at the time, he'd be up to his neck in them. Because you know what? It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. You start with a block of marble and you cut it all into chips. It takes up more space than the marble. The marble itself, the block of marble, is more compact. This is totally off topic, except kind of not. You know, when the Vikings and the Basques used to hunt whales, the first thing they did after they caught the whale was they cut it up. Two reasons they did that. One is that it's very difficult to steer the boat with a whale attached to it. It's an unhelpful navigational tool. The other thing, however, is that once you cut the whale up, you have a lot more whale in a lot many places than you did when it was all whale. So now you have to figure out where to put it. You can't fill the boat with it. The boat will sink and there'll be no room for the men. So what you do is you go and build a rendering station and you drag the whale over there, cut it up over there, put it in containers, and then bring the containers and store them on the ship. You may have to make trips. Perfectly fine. That's manageable. If you didn't cut the whale up, it would begin to smell. It would rot. And then you'd have no end of all kinds of unpleasantness. So if you don't cut up a whale, it's a cheese doodle. Big cheese doodle, but it's a cheese doodle. If you don't sweep away the marble chips, you end up with this much of the block to work on because the rest of it is buried. When we do that to ourselves, when we hoard, when we do something that fills time in a way that is not productive, we know it. We may try to ignore it, but we know it. It's there. How do we know it? Well, we're the ones doing it. Is it possible to go and get the bag of cheese doodles without knowing it? No. Is it possible to eat the entire contents without being consciously aware? Sure. But that's because we're doing something else. We're watching something. We're reading something. We're daydreaming about something. If we hold the bag and look at the bag and consciously eat each doodle, is that what they're called? How many doodles have you had? If we actually stare and watch ourselves do it, we know we're doing it. The thing is, we know we're doing it anyway. And here's why it matters. Here's why it matters. I have a pile of papers on my desk that I have to take care of. I had this finishing off the putting together of the beautiful comments and the photos from the celebration of life. I was looking and searching and researching to find a way to put them together in a really sweet package. And it was taking me a long time, and that was frustrating. And every time I sat down and I saw all my notes, it annoyed me, not in an angry way, but in a way that felt frustrating because I wasn't succeeding at my task. And I don't like that. I don't like the sensation of feeling like I'm failing. It does not put me in a positive, happy place. It doesn't put any of us in a positive, happy place. So when we cheese doodle, I'll pick up my clothes off the floor later. I'll put the groceries away later. Because why? Because we can't be bothered, because we're not engaged, because we don't care. For any of the reasons why we choose that option, we know we've done it to ourselves. We haven't done it to anyone else. We've done it to ourselves. We have sabotaged us. And that bothers us. It's not that we walk around yelling, "What the hell is wrong with you?" We don't do that. It's much more like, on the top of the stove, there's those 4 elements, and the one at the back, there's a small one at the back. If you turn that on, meaning to do something, and then you forget that you did that and you walk away, every time you walk past the kitchen or you're in the kitchen, there's heat coming from somewhere, and you're aware of it, but you're not saying, aha. It's just you're conscious of it. While the brain is conscious of that, is paying attention to that, however arm's length-ish, it's not giving 100% attention to the priority. It's multitasking. And my definition of multitasking, doing many things badly, right? So what Eddie said to me was, this was my first time, my first opportunity to be in charge of what I had to do with the paperwork. I'd done bits and pieces of it before. I understood the process. It wasn't beyond my capability. It was just the first time that I had to do every single one of the steps in that process. And I was there early, ready to take it on. And I was feeling pretty good about what had happened the day before. And so as I worked, I disposed of the pile of paper that always accumulates when you go through this process. As I worked, I looked at it, knew I didn't need it, crossed it off, discarded it. At the end of the job, I felt amazing because everything was done. I didn't have 3 different sets of things I had to do. I was doing it in the right sequence. Do this, cross it off, discard. I didn't do this and then set it aside to have to deal with later. I did it as I went. And I did it because I felt this was my first time I got to set the habit. I got to set the intention. I got to design the way I was going to achieve my goal, because this was going to be one of my regular functions. And he said, and you know what happened? I didn't have a brain freeze. And you know what else happened? I finished 15 minutes early. And you know what else happened? I double-checked the numbers, and they were spot on. I achieved all of that because I came in with the right attitude. I came in with a clear purpose, and I came in with the intention to do it the way I was going to be known for doing it. This was my opportunity to say, I'm walking here. And I said, well, how about that? How about that? How smug do we feel now? And he said, I'm walking around wondering if I'll get my head through the door. And I don't care if I don't. So I said, tell me how long, time management, ladies and gentlemen, time management, exactly, Freddie, time and task management. Time management and task management with a clear goal in mind. Exactly. Intention, purpose, attitude, prioritizing, being present in the moment, making that decision so that all the other decisions almost made themselves. How cool this is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all shapes and sizes, is that what I want for me is what I want for you. I want the good days to be awesome, and the challenging, struggling days to be manageable, to be bearable, to be something to be proud of. I want this journey to be the one we choose to be on. I want the conversations to be less about, oh, you'll never guess what happened to me today. I want the conversations to be about, guess what I overcame, no matter how small. And I know that there are so many of us, I certainly am one. There are so many of us who are in moments right now that are so overwhelming. We are exhausted. We need a hug. We need a warm blanket. And we need someone to tell us we're safe and it's okay. We need to be told, I got you. You have value. You're one of us. We need that. We need it every day. And the opposite side of that is that everyone in our circle, everyone in our various tribes, from time to time, looks to us because they're feeling the same way. They don't need us to be their savior. They don't need us to be their white knight. They don't need us to put aside our agenda and our lives and live for them. They don't need that. They just need to know that we are present in the moment, that we hear them, and that we have the capacity to say, here, let me help you with that. Not here, let me save you, sit down, I'll take over. No. We can only live our own lives. We can only be there for each other if we begin by being there for us, by resisting the lazy habit of self-sabotage. As Freddie said, time management. As I added, task management. I am, one of the things that I like as much as cooking is cleaning up after cooking. So what I do is I clean up as I go. Because by the time I've cooked, what I want to do is eat it. That's the whole thing about cooking. You know, you make it and you have to wait for it to finish itself, however it does that. Okay, so while you're cooking, and you can rinse things and put them over here and get them out of the way instead of just trying to manage around them. Yes, a helping hand in time of need. Exactly, Fred. Exactly. When we do the work as we go, it's not a big deal. There isn't a pile of it to do. When there's one dirty cup, when there's one grubby spoon, and we rinse it and wash it and put it over there where it's supposed to go, there's nothing to clean. If we do stuff and keep leaving things, we have 1,000 things to clean. If we leave everything overnight, the next morning it's fabulous, darling. It's just fabulous. I basically want to sell the house and just walk away. Start over, please. Can I have a clean one? So, Pivotry in motion, this term that I have created, this visual that I have adapted from the physical pivot. This is a direction. This is a pivot. This isn't a pivot. This is an arc. This is a curve. This is an adjustment. A pivot is, that's a pivot. Pivotry is the act of, the art of pivoting. Pivotry, by my definition, is the mindset it takes, the attitude it takes, the intention it requires to choose the move, to choose which part of us we use, to choose the tool that enables us to do it. What is the tool? That secret thing I kept saying, I know what it is and I know where it is, and I'm going to, one of these fine days, I'm going to tell you what it is. The tool we use is mirroring. It is the technique we have always used from the beginning of time. All living creatures mirror as a way to learn new tasks, new skills to survive and thrive. The difference between mirroring, as in an actual physical task, and mirroring 2.0, the term that I have given it, is that 2.0 is on purpose, consciously, with intention, with an end clearly in mind. What are we mirroring? We are mirroring the dominant mood that exists in the moment. How are we mirroring it? We are recalling from our memory banks, from our subconscious memory banks, the way we mirrored it in the past. In my case, how I've been talking about it, the facet of us we use, the personality we use, how I behave when someone says, here's $1 million. At last, the secret of Pivotry. Yes. How, if somebody says, I'm going to give you $1 million to behave as mom, you have to wear the costume. I will behave as mom. I will put on the costume. I will first of all check that the $1 million is in the bank and can't be rescinded. I have been fooled in the past. So why will I do that? Because I've been asked. How will I do it? I will repeat what I have done before. Now, how in the first place did I come up with mom? How did I find that quality and use that quality to create the character for You Can't Do That on Television? When Roger Price hired me and he said, you're going to play a mom. I'm not a mom. I've never had a child. I have no maternal instinct whatsoever. How am I going to do that? How on earth would I do that? Well, I would mirror somebody, wouldn't I? I would mirror somebody that I knew who was a mother. So just roughly off the top of your head, off the top of my head, who have I known since the dawn of my time? Who's a mother? Who's a mom? Mine. My mother. And I can guarantee you that if you ask anyone who knew my mother, not the glamorous one, not the one in the fancy clothes who looked amazing, but the one who said, I'm sorry, dear, what were you saying? Oh, that's nice, dear. And making sandwiches without paying attention and putting the most awful things in between the two slices of bread. And then putting it together, putting it in for my lunch in the morning. And when I got to school and I opened it, I go, I come home and say, what is that? Oh, I'm sorry, dear. I must have been thinking of something else. I hope so. I hope so. So I was raised in that. I was raised in that person. That is my retrieve mom. That's who it is. I don't know another one. I'm an only child, you know. I went to different schools. I met different kids. I was never around long enough to get to know anybody else's mom very well. I don't remember them, really. I remember mine vividly. So how well did I perform mom? like a pro. Did people love her? Yes. Why? Is the question I have asked a lot. And the reason I think that they loved her was that she was inclusive. She was benign. She was, she'll feed you. She doesn't really know who you are, or whether you're one of hers. But she's very happy to try and feed you. If there's room at the table, there's always going to be more liver and lima beans. So we're all good there, dear. But she's not really present. And that's how I knew how to do her. And that's how I can do her again. I just go get her. I know where she lives. I know where that memory is stored. How? Because I've gone looking and I've retrieved it before. I know where it's stored because I know where all of them are stored. They're stored in the place where my survival instincts are kept. And the conscious brain understands cause and effect. The subconscious brain is saving us. The conscious brain is giving us the tools and the knowledge to thrive. The secret of Pivotry is choosing to do and be the best we can bring, to honor us, to respect us, to empower and enable us to survive and thrive. And in the process, giving us the ability to help the people we love, to be there, to be in the boat, collaborating, connecting, engaging, encouraging, supporting, cheering, because we're all in this together. And we can do it the hard way, or we can do it the easy way. Why wouldn't we do the easy way if it was available to us? So one of the things I want to leave you with today is this. Knowledge is not power. You know that phrase, knowledge is power? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Knowledge is opportunity. Knowledge is opportunity. Dissatisfaction and curiosity are the tools we use, is the fuel we need to say, oh, look, that's opportunity. Let's do this. Are you ready? Are you with me? And then we not only survive, we thrive, we grow, we prosper. Life is joyful, and we are blessed with abundance. And why wouldn't we want that? Pivotry in motion is the plan, kids. I am going to be doing a very funny show. I'm working on the material. I'm loving the material. I'm loving the title. I'm loving the way it's going to come together. I know it's going to be a hoot. And the whole reason I'm doing the show is to give you an opportunity to watch me illustrate Pivotry in motion. To give you an opportunity to be front and center with me live, and or watching the recorded version of it, the video version of it, if you can't make it to the show in person, to watch how I do it in the moment, live. And then we're going to talk about it. We will have a Q&A. because life is not a spectator sport, and my audiences are not spectators. My audiences are the reason I came. This is not for me. This is for us. The more you know, the more we grow. I just thought of that. I should write it down. The more you know, the more we grow. I like it a lot. Okay, so this is Thursday. This has been Thursday. It's raining really hard here today, which is kind of a good thing because get rid of all of the smoke, ash, fire stuff that's been going on, clean up the streets, all that kind of thing. And so it's a good day to be inside. It's a good day to be taking care of all the paperwork that is mounting up around me. We have a weekend coming, and I'm sure we're all going to be busy because here it is July, and finally it's summer, or on the other half of the world, it's winter. And so there's all kinds of activities that we have in mind. As you are going through your habits and your prep for the things that you have always done, see if you can remind yourself about today's video. Because I want you to look at the things that are challenging you like this. You know how I'm always saying people like us do things like this? The fact is, a lot of people like us have no idea how to do things like this. And it's frustrating. It's embarrassing. And when we hear or we think we see people getting it done, walking here, spiking the ball, it makes us feel terrible about ourselves. And I want to be very clear. All people like us get it wrong. That's why there's such a thing called a learning curve. That's why there's such a thing called a leaping curve, which is when the learning process is sudden and sharp and surprising. We all have to learn it. We all had to watch our alpha do something and figure out how to mirror it and get it wrong before we got it right. People like us don't spontaneously do things like this brilliantly. We get gooder at it as we go. And how we get gooder at it is by leaning in to our tribe and saying, which end of this do we hold? Oh, I had no idea you have to take it out of the box. Thanks. Somebody once said, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. And I said, why? Oh my God, what will people think? And I said, well, first of all, they're too busy being embarrassed about something they did to be thinking about what you just did. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, you made a mistake. Oops. Are you sorry? Yes. Fine. You're going to try not to do it again? Of course. All right then. Embarrassed. Why are you never embarrassed? Why am I never embarrassed? Why am I never embarrassed? Here's the thing. If you're ever having a bad day, you look in the mirror and you think, oh my God, I look terrible. I hate the way I look. Yeah, no. Take a moment, please. Go to YouTube. Type in, you can't do that on television. Mom, watch 30 seconds of any of them. There's millions. 30 seconds. You're having a bad hair day? Watch. Mom. Why am I never embarrassed? Please. It's very freeing, really. I look at a photograph somebody takes and I think, oh my God, I look awful. And I think, however, I have looked worse. It doesn't mean I want people to see this one either. I've now forgiven the way I looked on that show because, oh, by the way, it was my idea. And the other, oh, by the way, is that it contributed to a lot of really lovely comedy that was a joy to watch and has created joy and laughter and lovely, warm, yummy memories for millions of people. And for that, I am remarkably grateful and incredibly proud to have been part of that. So I can sometimes get over the fact that I allowed myself to look like that, when really at the time I was fairly cute. So the embarrassment is a stalling tactic. That's all it is. Put it aside. I'm not going to tell you to get over it. It's a natural reaction. And I'm going to tell you why it's a natural reaction. When we look at something we have done and it embarrasses us, it is actually a function. That embarrassment is actually a function of fear that we will not be strong enough to survive if we are tested. We look weak, we look stupid, we look helpless, we look fragile, we look broken. By the definition of primitive survival brain, that is a magnet for predators. That's where that whole thing comes from. That's what embarrassment is. It's just a modern day spin on, I look like the weak gazelle at the back of the herd. I better find a place to hide. Really, that's all it is. So embarrassment is a stalling tactic in today's modern day. Figure it out, ask for help, take ownership and make it okay. Now, Patrick has written something here, and it's important. I want, however, to add a corollary, Patrick. What Patrick has written is a very popular thing, and I like it. Good, better, best. Never let it rest until our good is better and our better best. I want to say, savor each step along the way. When we try and fail, take a breath, examine, try again. Rest between the efforts. When we rest, when we pause, that is when we assess, analyze, and apply, and begin again. The learning process is essential. If we don't know how we do it, we can't do it again. So the idea of telling yourself da 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 is not helpful in the long run, because we stop hearing what we're saying and we don't realize the message that we are telling ourselves. The message in that saying is chase the outcome. And chasing it is not how it works. Improving our skills, understanding our process, choosing the intention that aligns with our purpose are the skills we need to get where we want to go. And we have to give ourselves permission to take those steps and navigate that curve. And when it's a leap of understanding, give ourselves permission to land and get ready to start again. We have to be good to us, kids. We have to be good to us. Why? Because that's how it works. That's how it works. If you don't put the good stuff in, everything falls apart. If we don't give ourselves the attaboy, attagirl, way to go, we lose our momentum. We lose our belief in ourselves. And if we don't share that with others, the tribe falls apart. And that sucks. Because we still have to do the dishes, and now we have to do them alone. And don't talk to me about folding the laundry. Oh. So this was amazing. This was important. We are all masters of Pivotry. We just don't know how it works until someone shows us. And that's my job. That's why I'm here. To show you where the steps across the pond are. And I will talk to you about the steps across the pond next time. It's a great story. So between now and then, it's the weekend. Be good to you. Do the stuff that lightens the load, that clears the brain, that makes you say, I got this. I look pretty good in that. I didn't lose all 7 pounds by Friday, but I lost 3, and I might lose 6. Give ourselves permission to be pleased with us every step along the way. We deserve it. You deserve it. And remember to hug your loved ones. What they put up with you. Oy. Thank you so much for watching. You mean everything. This is all because you are here. This is us. It's incredible, isn't it? I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.